I never believed in showing off or proving myself with words. I truly believed that hard work speaks for itself. I had been working at that company for years. It wasn't just a job to me. It was my identity. I showed up on time, stayed late, and often did work that wasn't even part of my role, just so the team could succeed. I believed loyalty, honesty, and effort would never go unnoticed. I was wrong. That office, that desk, that computer, they were part of my daily life. I gave up my sleep, my weekends, even my dreams for that job. I never asked for credit because I believed one day people would see the truth on their own. But the truth is, people only notice what is shown to them. And those who stay silent are often ignored. Slowly, things began to change. A senior colleague started taking credit for my work. In meetings, he presented my ideas as if they were his own. Every time, I told myself, it's okay. The truth will come out. But the truth doesn't always come out quickly. Sometimes, it stays quiet and quietly breaks someone. Then came the day that changed everything. I was called into a sudden meeting. No explanation. No warning. The moment I walked into the room, something felt wrong. The same people who smiled at me every day were now avoiding eye contact. HR was there. My manager was there. And so was he. My heart started racing, but I stayed calm. My manager spoke first. Anna, we feel you're no longer a good fit for this role. Those words hit me like a blow. No longer a good fit? Was my hard work not a fit? My sleepless nights? My loyalty? Then he spoke, confidently, calmly. He said I missed deadlines. That I wasn't a team player. That my performance didn't meet expectations. It was all a lie. But in that room, truth had no value. I wasn't even given a chance to explain. Today is your last day. It felt like the ground disappeared beneath my feet. I picked up my bag and walked back to my desk, the same desk where I had spent years of my life. I looked at my computer one last time. My eyes filled with tears, but I didn't let a single one fall. I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. When I stepped outside the building, the cold Chicago wind hit my face. People were walking by, living their normal lives. The world hadn't stopped, but mine had. One question kept repeating in my head. What did I do wrong? When I got home, I collapsed. I cried. I blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I should have spoken up. Maybe staying quiet was my biggest mistake. But in that silence, in that broken moment, I heard another voice, weak but honest. Anna, they fired your job, not your worth. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were swollen. My face was tired. But somewhere deep inside, a small spark was still alive. And in that moment, I made a decision. If I've fallen, I will rise. If they silenced me, I will let my actions speak. After I lost my job, the difference between day and night disappeared. I was home. But my mind was still stuck in that office, the one that had quietly pushed me out. Every morning I woke up with the same question echoing in my head. What now? No office. Schedule. No clear purpose. It felt like my identity had been taken away. I wasn't Anna the professional anymore. I was just an unemployed woman, replaced and forgotten. I tried to act strong on the outside, but inside, I was falling apart. People would ask, "Why did you leave your job?" I would smile and say, "I needed a break." But the truth was, it wasn't a break. It was a wound. A quiet wound that no one could see, but one that hurt every single day. Nights became the hardest. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind kept replaying the same scene, the meeting, the accusations, the final words, "Today is your last day." I questioned myself over and over again. Was I really not good enough? Were they right about me? Did I fail without even realizing it? Sometimes I hated myself for staying silent for so long. I thought, if I had spoken up, if I had defended myself, maybe things would be different. But then another thought would follow. If they couldn't see my value, maybe the problem wasn't me. Maybe the problem was where I was trying to grow. Money became a real fear. Bills didn't care about emotions. Rent didn't wait for healing. Groceries didn't come with sympathy. I spent nights staring at numbers, calculating how long I could survive like this. Every passing day reminded me that time was moving, whether I was ready or not. One day, I asked myself a question that changed everything. Anna, if no one gives you another chance, will you give yourself one? That question terrified me. Because believing in yourself after rejection is one of the hardest things to do. But I also knew this. If I stopped here, the people who underestimated me would win without even trying. So I started small. Very small. One morning, I opened my resume. My hands were shaking. Every line reminded me of how much I had done, and how easily it had been ignored. But for the first time, I saw something clearly. I wasn't empty. I was experienced. I was capable. I began learning again. Skills I once thought were extra slowly became my strength. I kept myself busy because I knew if I stopped, fear would take over. Some days I felt motivated. Other days, I felt nothing at all. But I made myself a promise. Even when motivation disappears, discipline will carry me forward. Loneliness was still there. Some nights I wanted to call someone and say, "I'm scared." But I learned something important. Some battles are meant to be fought alone. Because those battles are the ones that rebuild you from the inside. One night, I wrote a sentence in my notebook. "They fired my job, not my worth." It was a simple sentence, but it carried all my strength. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. I wasn't successful yet. I wasn't back on my feet completely, but I was no longer broken. I was rebuilding myself. Quietly. Patiently. And this, Chimi, I had no intention of stopping. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. No announcements. No social media posts. Complaints. I had learned something the hard way. Real change doesn't need an audience. It needs focus. My days slowly started to follow a new rhythm. I woke up early, got dressed, and showed up for myself as if I still had somewhere important to go. Because the moment you start treating yourself like you're useless, the world does the same. I handed my life over to discipline. Motivation came and went. Some mornings I felt strong, other mornings I felt empty. But discipline stayed. And I realized something powerful. Motivation makes promises. Discipline keeps them. I started applying for jobs. A lot of them. Some responded. Mostidan. There were interviews that went nowhere. Emails that started with unfortunately. Every rejection stung, but it didn't destroy me anymore. I began to see each no as information, not failure. It was a signal keep not yet. I stopped thinking like someone who just needed a job. I started thinking like someone who solved problems. I studied my industry again, the trends, the tools, the future. Everything I once did for a company, I was now doing for myself. And that's when it hit me. I hadn't been weak. I had just been loyal to the wrong place. One day, I asked myself a hard question. If they could replace you so easily, why can't you upgrade yourself just as fast? So did. I sharpened my skills. Late nights returned, but this time they were different. I wasn't working for someone else's dream anymore. I was building my own future. I learn that doesn't mean weakness separation. And people who are preparing don't ask for permission when they return. Months passed and something shifted. People who never noticed me before were suddenly viewing my profile. Messages started coming in. Hey, Anna, would you be open to a conversation? I closed my laptop and smiled. It was the same world. But I wasn't the same woman. I still remember one interview clearly. The person across from me looked at my resume and said, "You've done impressive work." And all I could think was, if only you knew how quietly this strength was built. I didn't feel revenge. I didn't feel anger. I felt peace. Because my comeback wasn't against anyone. It was for myself. I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be yet. But I was on the path. And this chiminasmi. That night, I wrote in my notebook. They underestimated my silence. They forgot silence is where warriors are built. This was the moment my life shifted. When the world started noticing me again. This chimi. I wasn't asking for permission. Success didn't arrive overnight. There was no miracle call. No dramatic moment where everything suddenly changed. But one day, I realized something quietly powerful. I was standing in a place I once thought I'd never reach again. I accepted a new role. A better Juan. A healthier environment. This company didn't just see my output. They saw my value. For the first time, my silence wasn't mistaken for weakness. It was respected as depth. I wasn't just another employee anymore. I was trusted. I was heard. I mattered. And then came a moment I never expected. A professional event in Chicago. A room full of industry leaders, conversations, and opportunities. I walked in confident, calm, not looking for validation, not proving anything. That's when I saw him. The same was a Gidinaf. The same man who took credit for my work. The same man who watched me walk out of that office with my head down. Our eyes met. I saw surprise on his face. Confusion. Maybe even regret. He walked toward me and said, "Anna, I didn't know you were here." I smiled. Because this time, I didn't need to explain myself. He added awkwardly, "I've heard you're doing really well." I looked him in the eyes and replied calmly, "Yes, I am." Nuger. Sarcasm. No revenge-filled speech. Because real revenge doesn't raise its voice. Real revenge moves on. Later that day, something happened that healed a part of me I didn't know was still hurting. A senior leader took the stage and spoke about a project. My project. My work. My leadership. My name. The room filled with applause. And in that sound, my mind traveled back to the nights I cried alone, the days I doubted myself, the moments I asked, "Am I enough?" And in my heart, I finally answered, "Yes, Anna, you always were." That's when I understood something deeply important. The people who break you are often part of the process that builds you. If I hadn't been fired, if I hadn't been humiliated, if I hadn't been forced to sit alone with my fears, I might still be underestimating myself. I didn't come back bitter. I came back stronger. And there is a huge difference between the two. If you're listening to this story and you feel invisible, if you feel overlooked, silenced, or underestimated, remember this. Silence is not the end. Silence is preparation. Being pushed down doesn't mean you're finished. Sometimes, it simply means your direction is about to change. Nezana. I was fired, but I was never finished. I rebuilt myself. Quietly. Patiently. Relentlessly. And this, Chimi, I'm here to stay.